One of the things that perplexes me is that if Labour, under their term, are so comfortable with their performance, are so relaxed that there was no problem, as Mr Hipkins claims, that everything was all right despite these so-called paper losses, why does the member who was responsible for the debacle that was ACC under Labour get so excited every time we point out those shortcomings? So in the interests of reinforcing those shortcomings, I want to reiterate what the Minister in the Chair has said. In August 2008, the Labour Cabinet had every opportunity to include in the PREFU the $305,168,000 that ACC and the Department of Labour told them was required in the non-earner account. They chose not to do so on the basis that, quote, it hadn't been subject to sufficient detailed scrutiny. How on earth can you get more detailed than down to the nearest dollar? The report into that made it unequivocal that that was in breach of the Public Finance Act, and the Labour response was to hang Treasury out to dry. So much for loyalty to the government department that stood by them. Very disloyal in my view, Mr Chairman, very disloyal. And in amongst all of that, not just $2.4 billion was provided over by that member who's ferreting on. Half of the $4.8 billion deficit that was incurred in the first 6 months after National came to power should also be taken responsibility for by them. And $7.2 billion reasons to improve the performance of ACC, and that party still says there were no problems. Now, a couple of financial reviews ago, because that member wasn't the ACC spokesman, the then spokesman, Mr Parker, came into financial review and made some very interesting comments about the accredited employer scheme that the previous member refers to, basically saying that there was no evidence that there were improvements in rehabilitation or cost as a consequence of the accredited employer scheme, which is pretty consistent with the Labour Party's view that the only people who can operate ACC are government and ACC. Now, there's a couple of areas where they very begrudgingly accepted that wasn't the case. The first was elective surgery, where 88% of all of the treatments are undertaken in the private sector. And when Labour came to power, they were very keen to do something about that. But then when they realised how efficient, how cost-effective and how important that was to rehabilitation, they left it alone.
That's right.
The other thing they very begrudgingly accepted was the accredited employer program, the partnership program, which, despite being very much at odds with their ideological beliefs, they left alone, although I do note that the number of people inside the accredited employer scheme did drift off in the last few years. So, Mr Parker, despite all of the evidence, claimed rather that there was a lack of evidence. So I was delighted to see amongst all of the stocktake reports that were prepared for the Minister in June last year, the review of employer-managed workplace injury claims, because it answered exactly those questions. Do accredited employers show lower medical and rehabilitation costs? Well, actually they don't. They show higher rehabilitation costs and medical costs. But guess what that does? It lowers weekly compensation costs. They invest early because they know that getting people back to work faster and in a lasting way reduces total costs to them in that case. They also found that the time between the date of first injury, well, it's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the accredited employer program, and we'll come on to what the government is proposing in amongst the discussion document on increasing choice. Goodness me, there's a word that's the antithesis of Labour ideology. Choice? No, we couldn't have that. But this report from Jenkins in the ACC stocktake report unequivocally showed that there was faster rehabilitation, higher costs on treatment, lower costs on weekly compensation, and overall better outcomes, not only for the employers, but for the employees. Not only that, but the really good accredited employers are doing the rehabilitation not just for the work-related personal injuries, but the non-work-related personal injuries, because they don't really care how it is that these people got injured. They just want them back at work, and so do we. And that's why I think this document is a really good start. I look forward to the consultation on it. We keep ACC in the game. I think that's a really good improvement on the sensible changes we made in 1998. If employers don't think there's cost benefit in it, they don't need to change.
Order. Members, the question is that the report of the Transport and Industrial Relations Committee on the 2009-10 financial review of the Accident Compensation Corporation be noted. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. I understand the next entity members wish to debate is the New Zealand Qualifications Authority. The question is that the report of the Education and Science Committee on the 2009-10 financial review of the New Zealand Qualifications Authority be noted.
Mr. Speaker.